And if you can, in the background, if you can just make sure that you're on mute so that I can't hear any background, because it's going to impact the recording. So good afternoon, everyone. Michael Furlong's my name, and this is me. These are the sorts of things that I do. So I work in the property management space, and at the moment, I'm almost exclusively working on rental minimum standards and customer audits, client audits is effectively what I'm doing, and a little bit of training in there as well. As for those that are REIV members, by all means, you can use the. I'm just looking over the side here for more people that are jumping in. Use this training session for your CPD points. Make sure that whenever you're attending any training, that you can also register for your points. So this is how you do it. Go in through the REIV section into the portal, and I see so many agents that are just struggling to get their CPD points. Then when I ask them, oh, you went to this webinar, that training, this event, that conference, that podcast, they just haven't actually logged in their points. So today is all around 7 key areas that I've been able to pick up since our last session. So I did a session in April, and it was all about the new task force that was planning to be launched by the Victorian government. And now we're now 3-4 months in. So I don't know if anyone's actually been audited. I've had a couple of my officers that have either received phone calls, received requests for information, and even one of my officers that I'm working with at the moment was audited a couple of weeks ago. And the phone call went like this. It was a Friday afternoon, received a phone call from the investigator to say, we've seen one of your ads online, and we've allocated Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. to visit the property. Please inform your renter that Consumer Affairs will be coming to the property. So, of course, our client was our property manager was a little bit freaked out, and we've been putting a lot of work into behind the scenes producing evidence. So on Tuesday morning, when they went to the property, there was only one. It was a rooming house. There was only one thing that they really pulled us up on, and that was the locks on each of the individual doors. So the main property lock was compliant, but the individual ones on each individual door. Because we're able to produce evidence, we're able to provide all the documentation, and because we'd shown and demonstrated what we've been working on, interestingly enough, the compliance, the officer then said that we were doing the right things and has given a warning to rectify these rather than a fine. So let's just run through these 7 areas that I'm going to work on. Please take lots and lots of notes if you can. There's either take some screenshots, feel free to do that. Otherwise, the recording will come out later in the date. If it's either today or it'll be tomorrow, it'll go out through to there. 90 minutes. So I've got a 90-minute session, and it's going to be, we've got people ringing me now because they can't get in of the link that I've actually sent. My apologies, inside of there. Okay. All right. So 90-minute session, and by 1:30 we will be done. I'm happy to answer any specific queries afterwards, particularly ones that are individual to your office. So there's my email. Just run through to there. One of the things that I just wanted to point out to you, and the reasons why I'm spending so much time in this webinar, is that both I'm a Property Me partner and also an Inspection Express partner. Now, when I say partner, please don't think I mean owner of the company. I'm not. I'd like to be in both, but I'm a support partner. So I work really in the Property Me space and the Inspection Express space. And the reason I work in that space is because I feel that they're the best 2 property management programs that are available at the moment. So I don't necessarily think that they're the best ever, but they're the best out there at the moment. And we've been able to adapt and modify and build some systems in and around those. So you can have a look for hopefully those people are here in the room. So I'm currently involved in 21 different offices. So I'm working with 21 different offices at the moment. There's one network of 12 offices, and then we've got and then 9 others that I'm working with. I have 21 Property Me and 20 that are Inspection Express. So it is actually quite common. So that's why I'm actually building around those. One other person doesn't use, it's in New South Wales, they don't use Inspection Express, but otherwise it's exclusively Property Me and exclusively Inspection Express. I'm not here to do an ad for them, but I just want to say that the systems that I've been building and working on are exclusively really adding value to both Property Me and also Inspection Express. So in April, I did this webinar. And again, it was all around 10 steps to prepare your business. And at that stage, we really didn't know what the plan was going to be, how the task force was going to happen, where the training was going to be, what inspections, how much of the enforcement, how the fines work, whether there will be criminal charges, all those sorts of things. So what we've got is, I'm just going to go through to there. There we go, adding everyone in through to there. Sorry, guys. I had hidden it behind the scenes there. Everyone's now jumping in. Okay. So guys, I've started the recording. My apologies. There were a few people sitting there waiting that I didn't see. And the recording is off and running. So welcome to everyone. If I could ask you just to pop your mics, all of your microphones onto mute, please. All right. So in April, we ran this webinar, and this was the 10 easy steps. So these steps here that I've, off this webinar that I had put together, was 10 areas to fix your business. From that, I was able to then actually, guys, if everyone can just pop themselves onto mute, that would be great. From that, we've been working with these officers in the last 4 months. So I put together a strategy for checklists, documents, process, training, Trello, and making sure that we were really prepared for the task force. And these are the officers that I've been, so I'm not coming here today and telling you about something which I think may work. We're actually putting this in place for all of these officers here at the moment. Okay, so we're 3.5 years in since the Act. We're 3.5 years in since the new changes to the Act and the regs. My question to you is, how prepared are you? Because what I'm seeing, more and more officers are picking up the phone, they're ringing, they're asking me to come and either have a look at their office, they're asking me to have a look at their documents, they're asking me to have a look at their systems, their processes, because for the first time in the 3.5 years, I think after being put on notice by Consumer Affairs back in March, but the government has done, I think now directors are now starting to understand the potential risks to them. Whereas beforehand, a lot of it was just more property management driven. So my question here is, after 3.5 years of the Act, what are you still struggling with? And I think you would have a list of the things that you're looking at. The industry is most certainly being put on notice. In March of this year, when the government came out and said, this is now potentially the fines, this is now potentially what's going to happen, I think a lot of officers really then, all right, we need to now start, which is surprising because I've been doing this now for 3.5 years. Now, I know I've got Kirk in the room and I've got Haley in the room. We've all been doing this, helping officers. Not saying that individual officers haven't been. However, it's about trying to make sure that you take a step back. And I'm going to use the analogy property management 2.0. Property management before March 29th, 2021, and property management from the 30th on. Property management from the 30th on is 2.0. So most officers that I see are struggling in these areas collectively, whether it's the change in legislation, which has really impacted a lot of officers. Of course, we've still got high staff turnover, but it's trying to find the right staff, right training. The lack of rent roll growth at the moment, I've seen some officers, and I won't use the word hemorrhage because that's probably not right, but some officers are losing anywhere between 15 to 18 to 20% of their portfolio. Now, some of that's their fault. Other parts of that is 12 consecutive interest rate rises. We have had high cost of living. We are experiencing a particular, and I'm talking Victoria, this is only Victorian. We're talking about land tax, ridiculous land tax that's been added in. So commercial businesses are going to the wall. Businesses are struggling. and a lot more owners I'm seeing collectively amongst the portfolios, a lot more owners that are having to move back into their property. So as a result, and then of course, the high cost of compliance, rental minimum standards and those sorts of things. So people are just selling out. Rent roll growth, really, really struggling at the moment. Competitors offering lower fees. If you're in a position where you're offering low fees at the moment, I think that that is crazy, because for the amount of compliance work that's required and the risks associated, I think that you would be doing yourself and your agency a disservice. So I'm going to encourage you, and I'm happy to chat with you about this one. I spend a lot of time in fee maximisation, fixing levels of service, fixing and doing workshops around the business development of making the rent rolls more profitable than what they currently are. I'll show you that in a second. Staff not following systems. What else we got over here? Higher compliance expectations and losing managements to other offices. I'm sure that if I ask you to put your hands up, there's lots of people that are losing, lots of agencies that are losing business to their competitors in the same street, in the same shopping centre, in the same suburb, that are not focused on compliance. I'm sure that that's the case. So often when I'm working with officers, I'm saying, well, you have to then make a decision whether that's the cost of doing business, whether you want that risk or you don't. And I think when I go through and show you some of the potential fines, you'll realize that you don't want that risk. So why all of a sudden is there urgency? Why all of a sudden we're running events like this? So firstly, as I said, March, we had the government come out and start talking about the task force. In April, I ran this webinar. I had 16 agencies. And as I said, from that, I picked up 4 or 5 to work with exclusively to look and say what some of them just wanted me to fix their inspection express work. Some of them, after I highlighted the areas there, others wanted the work on labels and so forth. So why all of a sudden is there so much issue and urgency? And I can tell you why. I spent a little bit of time on doing this yesterday. Firstly, that's our wonderful leader. And if you have a look down below here, letting a renter move into a rental property doesn't meet the minimum standards is a criminal offence with maximum penalties of over 11,500, nearly 12,000, or nearly 60,000 for companies. This is from her. This is from Jacinta Allen's press release. Criminal offence. I've been in this industry now for 25 years, and I've never seen that language, that amount of that tone. I've never seen the tone come from government. One of the things I'm also involved in, and I've got Hayley in the room. Hayley's the director of the RIV. I'm involved in the property management chapter. We are incredibly concerned at the level of language that's coming from CAV, the government. We're incredibly concerned about the negative connotation towards agencies. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'm going to show you here in a second. So that was in March. They're all the things in March. I'm not regurgitating, but they're all that was in March when they were coming out and saying, and there was so much media around the potential, and it was all around dodgy landlords, dodgy agents. And I don't buy into that. I think it's wrong. Since the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've just gone into CAV's Facebook page, just Facebook. I'm sure that you would be receiving this as well. If you're not already following CAV on their Facebook page, please go there. I'm not trying to promote CAV, but go there and have a look and see the messaging that's coming out. This is what our government body is sending out to our customers, to the clients, to the renters, to the rental market. I don't necessarily think, and if I was the marketing strategist for consumer affairs, I would suggest they're targeting the wrong person. Where they're targeting is the renter, and they're expecting the renter then to come and dob in the agent, for want of a better word. What I'd like to see is educating the owners. How do we educate the owners? How do we support the owners financially? How do we support them, which is then in turn going to help our agents? Let's just have a look at this down below. So 2 weeks ago, Consumer Affairs, this is the discussion point around their advertising campaign out in Clayton when they went and started doing their on-site audits. My phone started a couple of days after that from people out in that area saying, oh, Consumer Affairs are now starting to come in and audit. This has been going on for 3.5 years, guys. So we really, it didn't happen a couple of weeks ago. Have a look down below here. There was 94 comments where I've got the arrow and 50 shares. That's the thing that I want you to have a look at. The number of times that people are going into their Consumer Affairs website and then they're sharing it. So whether that's renters sharing again. So again, agents must not ask applicants for rent that's more rent that's advertised. In the last 3.5 years, I've not seen one agent, and I'm sure there's a few out there, I've not seen one agent ask a rental bid. I've not seen it. Maybe it's happening, but I've just not seen it in the offices that I'm in. Now, I started off telling you that I'm in 21 different offices. Collectively, if I added all those portfolios up, I think it's maybe 5,500 across the 21 different offices, maybe a bit more. So there's a lot of different fingers I've got in the pie out into the marketplace. Not one of those offices is doing rental bidding or auctions. Misleading ads, a lot of offices are still struggling. I'm going to show you a couple of ads in a second. So that was just 6 days ago. Then we come back through to a couple of agents that are doing the wrong thing, and so they should be jailed. So they should be in all sorts of problems. We're in a position of trust, and if you're going to start taking money from real estate from the trust account, then you should be going to jail, I think. But if you have a look over to here, on July 24th, Consumer Affairs has got this beautiful 50th year celebrating their relationship with Tenants Victoria. Have a look at what it says there. This is Consumer Affairs, because every time your owner picks up the phone and rings and says, I got a different answer, they're not working for us. Every time you pick up the phone and you ring CAV, they're not working on our behalf. We work closely with them through our tenancy central service to provide renters with legal information, advice, and casework. You know, we struggle as an industry to get the information. We are trying to get more and more info and partnership with CAV at an industry level, but it's just not really happening. I'm just going to fly through some of these. This is just in the last 6 weeks. International students know you're right. Report misleading rental property advertisements. So they're asking our clients, they're asking our renters to make a complaint against us. So there really isn't a lot of support. Changes you can make. When can rental providers add? This is just 6 weeks worth of. If you go onto the CAV Facebook page, you'll find 2 or 3 in 3, 2 out of every 3 posts is targeting renters, rental issues. So I don't know what the issue is with government. I don't know why they're pushing so hard. But I can tell you that the offices that are not prepared, the ones that I'm walking into, are going to, and they're still not quite organised. So I'll just go back through. Applications. So see up here where I've got it underneath here, June 11. We've made it easier to report issues with advertised rental properties. Absolutely, they've made it easier. There's the Facebook page, there's the website, and I'll show you an email that went out to all the renters, which I'm sure you all saw. June 5, CAV. You can face criminal charges if the rental property doesn't meet minimum standards when you rent it out. This isn't going to our clients. So if you're not already sharing this, I've got about 20 or so that are sitting in there. So please go and put this somewhere on your website. Go and put it to your owners. Make sure they're aware of all this information. So this is the email that went out June 13, 2024. One of my agencies sent me a message and said, I don't know if you know this, but CAV just sent an email out to our tenants. And then I started talking to other officers. I shot this through to the REIV, our property management chapter. And it's like, oh, that's a very interesting take on the position from Consumer Affairs. So what they've done is they've gone and used the RTBA database, and they've gone back to all bonds that were lodged and asked the renter, does the property meet the minimum standards? And if not, here's the links to the page to complain. So I was working with a Ray White office at the time, and that was a Friday, that happened on a Friday, and we got 3 renters that on that particular Friday email us and said, I don't really want to do this because the agency's been really good, but the property doesn't comply. So I'm just letting you know, and this is one office that's in Melbourne that I was working with, just letting you know that I'm making a complaint to CAV because it's not been fixed. But I just wanted to let you know that we appreciate what you're doing. So that was 3 in one office when this email came out. And of course, it's not difficult for either real estate agents, and I think that a lot of real estate agents are, particularly if they've lost a management or they're a little bit aggrieved, I think a lot of real estate agents would be going in and making anonymous calls or complaints. So here we are here, make a complaint and report an issue with advertised properties. So firstly, my question to you is this: how prepared are you in your office? Go back through the CAV list, minimum standards, advertising, all the other areas, compliance. Are you on track? And if you are, thumbs up. We can keep moving on. If you're not, maybe make a note that we've got some issues that we really need to address. I've used this slide here because when I speak with directors, I speak with the property management industry 95% of the time, and then I speak with directors for the little bit of the rest of the time. So when I hear, why are you not ready after 3.5 years? These are some of the reasons that I get. This is what I get often. We've been busy. I've left it up to my property managers to work it out. There's too many changes to manage all at once. The owners don't want to pay for the extra expenses. The owners sign the rental minimum standards form, so I'm fine, even if it doesn't comply. Our competitors aren't enforcing the rules, and we don't want to lose management. Or my property managers have told me we will be okay. So these are the sorts of things. And why have I got these little kids in right here? This is a 3-year-old kindergarten. I took a photograph there, not a photograph, but I got it off Google. A photograph of a 3-year-old kindergarten. So these little people have been born for the same amount of time that we've had the act. So it's not as though it's brand new. And this is what I'm trying to say to the principals. If you get caught today, unfortunately, you have to wear some responsibility, particularly from the directors. You have to wear some responsibility that you're just not organized. Now, I'm speaking to real estate agents so often, and I ask them when the last time they read the act. When was why are they not across this information? And you know, some of the reasons that I get are valid. A lot of the others are just a bit wishy-washy. So it has been 3.5 years. So the first area that they're looking at, and if you want to take a screenshot of these slides, feel free to, because this is where I've got like the issues and then a couple of little Q&As and then some actions. So potential issues. I don't know how in every one of the offices that I've been auditing, there's been bond lodgement issues. There's not been one office that I've audited this year that doesn't have bond lodgement issues. Now, as I said to you, I'm working with one office. I've got 20 offices here in Victoria and one in New South Wales. I just want to share this with you. The fine in Victoria for bond issues is $29,500. The same equivalent fine in the New South Wales office is $2,200. I don't understand why there's such a big difference. But when you go into some properties, some audits that I'm doing, some have got 20, 30, 40 bond issues, and it's like 29.5 grand a pop. So we just got to be really mindful. So today, team leaders, directors, if you're on the call, all the office managers, all the admin, please do a bond audit, extract your data from the RTBA, cross-link this, pull it out of Property Me, Property Tree, and then cross-link them if you're able to. If not, then let me know, and then we can try and help you. So the issues here: potential overdue bond lodgement, incorrect bond amount, incorrect amount stated on the authority, asking for PEP bonds, or bonds not processed in time for vacates. So go back through, check, do all of your. These are the tasks that you can be doing today that will fix or at least help you understand where you're up to. So check for missing bonds, check for overdue bond lodgement. You can't rectify what's been done, but you can stop them moving forward. Check for multiple bonds against a property. The amount of times where I'm actually still sitting in an doing a bond audit, and I'm sitting and I'm saying, okay, that bond's from 2019, but we've had 2 tenancies since then. So these are the things that someone in your office needs to take accountability for and clean up. So go back through, do an extract of your bonds. Write some internal procedures, maybe train. If you're using VAs, train your VAs if you're using, put some systems in place, create a workflow, create a checklist, but make sure that today you walk away from this session absolutely focused on no more bonds are going to be lodged late. No more bonds are going to be lodged more than the amount should be. Okay, track your bonds every month when you're sitting down with your PMs. Track your bonds as a KPI. It's one of the meetings I said today for those that were in earlier that I was chatting to. I ran a webinar earlier today all about monthly planning, and bonds is one of our activities that we track. Download the list and cross-check that. Okay, next one. Potential issues, advertising standards. I'll show you a couple of ads in a second that would just not fly. So that the issues are going to be, and if you have a look at CAV's website, they're talking about normal fines for us, and then they're talking of fines upwards of $2 million. Ridiculous, because it falls into a different act. But what you need to be able to do is just have this principle. And the officers that I work with and they come to me when I'm looking at an ad and they say, oh, come on, Michael, you're being a little bit ridiculous. If it says 5 minutes, it has to be 5 minutes from the train station, not 4, not 6, not 7. It has to be 5, or don't state it. It's better to go through and just use bullet points and nothing that can't be verified. So your photographs need to be current. Your bullet points need to be current. If you've got something to disclose, and my suggestion is this, if you're in a building, if you're in a portfolio that has a lot of buildings with owners corporation certificate, owners corporation rules, put that into the ad. If there's move in, move out requirements, put that into the ad. And so I like to then put those sorts of things. If there's an embedded network, which are the things that we need to disclose, put it into the ad. So you're trying to, wherever possible, make sure you over communicate the information. So go back through. So first we're going to do a bond audit. Now we're going to go and do an advertising audit. Have a look at the properties that are online today. In your office, would they comply if CAV was looking at them? This has been a forgotten area, the rental minimum standard. So we've focused on smoke, gas, electric, and the occasional pool that we have. And they've been the big issue. So smoke detectors been around for 20 years that I can recall. Gas and electric has been the last 3, and pool's been around for a while as well. Rental minimum standards is a little bit different. So this is where I get probably the most amount of pushback from principals. And the principal or the director will say to me, this is not my responsibility. This is the owner's responsibility. And I sort of buy into that a little bit. It is their owner's responsibility, absolutely. However, if you're then going to put a person into the property, you're now culpable. You're now jointly responsible for that as well. Because if you're going to advertise a property that doesn't meet the minimum standards, even if the owners tick yes, 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 and you can see with your own eyes, I don't think there's ever going to be a defense which turns around and says, I relied on the owner's information when you were the one that went into the property. So my suggestion here is create some systems, whether it's labels, and I'll show you the labels that I have in a second, whether it's labels, whether it's checklists, whatever it is that you're using to track every property. And I use the phrase evidence. So I'll show you 2 that I've got. I've got an advertising checklist, and I've got a rental minimum standards checklist that I've built inside of Property Me. And I'll show you what I've got here in a second. But go back through and start auditing, allocate someone. Now, whether you've got additional resources, whether it's a VA that's doing this, virtual teams, whether you need to recruit someone for the next couple of months to fix your portfolio, you only have to do it once. I'm suggesting September, October, November, December, round out 2024 and start 2025 fresh. Start 2025 as property management 2.0. So go back through and have a look at your switchboards, your property safety checks and all those sorts of things. Put together some procedures, allocate a third-party provider, get those sorts of things. Here's the bonds, just quickly. For those that are using Property Me, it doesn't actually track anywhere where the bond is lodged. It doesn't track a date. So you'll notice this from where the bond lodgement is, and we put a bond reference inside of here. One of the systems that I put into all the offices that I work with is we just add this bond lodgement date inside of here. And then when you're doing a report out of Property Me, you can bring up the report. You can go into the attachments and you drop down and you can bring in the move-in date. And then you can export that and then run a line across it and it brings you this. So it tells you how many days it took for you to lodge the bond. And in these scenarios, we've got 59 days, 15 days, 34 days, and 77 days. So that's the way that I use, and what I'm suggesting to you is to do a really, really quick bond audit. Now, unfortunately, it does take some manual work to add that in. But if you're using Property Me at the moment, maybe go back today and get every time you've got a brand new property, or when you're doing that bond audit from the RTBA, have someone go in and add those in. I've got a couple of labels in there as well that I use to track. Here are some of the ads. Here's some of the ads that I've got that I would suggest that, that you need to really focus on making sure is correct. I'll show you the ads in a second, but the location of the property. See, even in here, don't write something which is not correct, even if it's approximate, like 500 meters or 10 minutes, those sorts of things. You can't put those in unless it is specifically 500 meters. The property features, make sure that you've got every part of the feature put into your ad. The lawful use of the property, and I had this years ago where we had, unbeknownst to us, didn't, because we never asked for a title, but there was a commercial building in Collingwood that had been converted to apartments, and we were renting them out. We thought that they were residential. Turns out they were zoned as warehouses, and so we had 10 of them, and all 10 of the tenants at the time were given an exit notice from council. We didn't know that at the time. Ownership and facilities. Make sure if you've got facilities there in there. So here's a couple of the ads. So these are the things that I highlight when I go into. You can go into your own ads and pull these out. So tram stop on your door. Well, firstly, that would be a very noisy apartment, but that's not accurate. Only minutes away over here, not accurate. With secure intercom entry. I just want to caution you on this one. If you are actually ever using the word secure in any of your ads, I would coach you not to, because, and particularly over here, like secure undercover car park and storage cage. The moment that the car gets broken into, you've advertised a secure property and it's been broken into, you're actually jointly liable on this one. And I know this from firsthand experience because it happened with me in my agency many, many, many years ago with a property where we actually had secure entry, secure foyer. And then the renter wanted to get out of the property, and she showed photographs over different times of the building front door being wedged open with a brick. And she was able to get out of the property. And not only that, my agency at the time, had to pay for her moving costs. So that was a lesson that I learned, I reckon, 10 plus years ago. So never put in the word secure in there, but make sure you've got, private and secure, ample storage, plethora of public transport, only moments from, generously sized, ample, has everything you need. Well, it doesn't. A property doesn't. So we've got to be careful that we're writing ads that are specific, not writing them for Vogue. So these are the things that I'd suggest. So your rental minimum standards, and make sure you fix up your ads. Here's a couple of photographs of some very dodgy photos that I've picked up over the years. I'm not sure this garage down here, what was happening, but I like the toilet here on the landing, and then there's a toilet right there in the kitchen. And of course, you've got the steps sitting outside there on the fridge. If you haven't already shared this, and I know that I'm probably telling you now the basics, I probably am. I wanted to get this out of the way first, but make sure that every person in your team knows all 14 of the rental minimum standards. Every person needs to understand what they are. And I said to you before that I was involved in one particular office. There's a network, we've got 12 offices. So what we did a couple of weeks ago was we went out to our rental properties. We did, as part of our training, there was 34 property managers, and we carpooled to 3 vacant properties. and I'll show you the checklist that I gave them. And we went through and each individual person completed a rental minimum standards checklist to make sure the properties complied or didn't. And then we went back to our corporate office, which is in Point Cook, went back to the corporate office and said, right, okay, let's compare apples to apples. Who got yes for locks? Yes, no, why, what do you think? And then we went through. So don't just sit there and say, here's the link, you need to learn it. Take people out into the properties and then show them. We also recorded all that information for any new staff. So I did say to you, there's 7 key areas. I'm going to run through those now. The first one that I find in almost all offices, and I've experienced this just in the last couple of weeks, and I'll explain this in a second. The quality, accuracy, and compliance of your agency documents or documentation, including your owner documents and your tenancy documents. Too many documents have got the wrong agency business entity, and they're completed by staff not linked to the BLA. Outdated, not been updated since the Tenancies Act. 2 examples. Okay, example number 1, late last year, agency. The person who was filling in all the authorities, this office had 2 different offices, and that person was linked to a different office, but was filling in the management authorities for the second office. So when I got there were about 300 properties, and at least 100 of the management authorities were incorrect because they were completed by a person that wasn't linked to the license. So issue number 1, make sure you go back through and you confirm that the only people that can be completing a management authority, someone who's linked to the corporate license. Problem number 2, this was in the last 3 weeks. Problem number 2, inside of Inspection Express, where it says settings and it says your company, now I'm going to use ABC Real Estate. So ABC Real Estate might be the brand and it might be a franchise, but the company behind that is not ABC Real Estate. That's the brand. So my suggestion always is to make sure that you've got all your management authorities in a company, not in a brand. And that you also have that company is linked back through to the license and linked back through to your ABN and ACN and those sorts of things. Sounds pretty straightforward. However, I've just been working with an office that has 500 properties. The management authority was set up in Inspection Express incorrectly and is missing a word. So inside that, there's 500 management authorities, 500 leases, 500 rent reviews, 500, all of the information that's sitting there inside of their files that has been incorrect. So please make sure whoever the leader is, whoever the person's responsible in the office, if it is the director, if it's a team leader, go back into your Inspection Express, double check to make sure that every one of the documents cross-links with the Business Licensing Authority, cross-links with your ABN, cross-links with ASIC, and that they're all the same entity. Don't use a trading name. Case in point, I have one office that went from an RT Edgar to a Coronis, that then went, and then they've got another office that's gone to from a different agency to a Ray White and then to something else. So all the management authorities were added as Ray White rather than the company. And then what happens is the office didn't do an internal transfer. And so as a result, those authorities are not right. So we need to make sure, go back through, do an audit. So Inspection Express, let's just have a look at these ones. So the very first ones, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I'm finding at the moment. Please make sure that you're fixing these. Why is this important? It's absolutely critical that you have proof of ownership on every property that then flows back through into the property me or the owner card sitting inside of the software, which then flows back through into, because they automatically pull the data, back into your documents. So if you've got, at the moment, if you've got an incorrect management authority and your owner card is set up incorrectly, the likelihood of you having a valid lease is next to nil. So then what you'll have is probably an invalid rent increase, and you'll certainly have an invalid notice to vacate. So what we need to make sure is we bring it right back and we say proof of ownership first, exclusive management authority, set up the property card correctly, and then it will flow back through the rest of your documents. But again, people don't take the time. We're so busy focused on the day-to-day. Someone in your office needs to take the time and take responsibility to fix this up. Okay, so inside of Inspection Express, if you have a current, if you're using Inspection Express at the moment, feel free to reach out to me and I'll show you. I'll do a little video on the areas that I think you could have some improvement. And firstly, what I do is I break up the documents. So the owner's instruction form, I break it up into 4 individual documents: owner instruction, minimum standards declaration, property safety authority, and then your disclosure. It's really important they're different. Also, you can't be using the same new tenancy agreement as the renewal. I see this so often. So I go into someone's Inspection Express, and then I would look at their lease, and the same conditions are in there as it is inside of the renewal. They're completely different. You need to have different conditions for your subsequent leases, particularly around the break lease. And your management authorities. So I have I create 3 separate ones. So when I customize these documents, which I do a lot of work with Inspection Express, it takes about 4 to 5 days to customize one for a particular office. So the first thing we would do, here are a couple of examples of, these are real examples that I pull out when I'm working with particular offices. So this particular one on the left-hand side, so it's an REIV document. It's a 005A, which is assignable. However, it was never dated. Big issue, massive issue. This was an old property, and it was when we used to have 1 calendar month, and it had the 4 weeks years ago. And then, of course, down below, the checkbox was not ticked. So as a result, there's no ancillary fees. So what we have is we have a fee schedule, and the clients are charging. So they're charging for VCAT, charging for advertise, charging for everything else. But the management authority didn't entitle them to do that. So inside the marketing expenses, it says 0. And then inside the checkbox, it's not ticked. And as a result, we have no authority to charge. So these are the things that I'm hoping that you can go in. Because if you get audited, and there was a post that I wrote the other day around auditors. Just be careful of who does your audits, because the client that I was talking to you about that had the wrong entity is using an online firm, which a lot of people promote. I don't. They promote them, and it's cheap. They're an auditor that doesn't come to your business, and they randomly select some files. So I'd be very, very careful. Get an auditor that comes into your office, checks all your documents, helps train, provides systems and process. What you're looking for is you want someone who can help you build your rent roll and the data, rather than someone who's just a bit cheap for your audits. Because this is what will happen. It'll come back and bite you. So this is what I'm talking about with regards to the properties when I'm talking about proof of ownerships. So on the original proof of ownership over here, we've got that we have 2 owners. So I've got this person, Sama, and then Marianne. But when it's been put back into Property Me, for the new document, it only had the 1 person, not the 2nd person. So now we have invalid management authorities. But more importantly, if you can, and I'll give you this tip now for anyone that's using Inspection Express today, go into your templates and all your management authorities and change the front heading of all of them and add the word exclusive. Because nowhere else in that document, in the entire document, which I've read end to end repeatedly, does it say that it's exclusive. So therefore, it's general. See over here, the REIV one, exclusive leasing and management authority. But over here on the Inspection Express template, and this was only pulled out earlier in the year, January or so, it's a general leasing and management authority. Really impacts your business when you are looking to sell. Not only that, or valuation, not only that, this also has a PO box, which you can't use a PO box. So these are the things that I'm showing you inside of here. Again, checkbox not there. The authorities, go back through all your authorities, go back through all your documents. So poor documentation, number 1 thing that's impacting businesses at the moment that I see, particularly anyone that's looking to sell. anyone that's looking to exit out, or more importantly, if you're looking to buy, don't buy this sort of garbage, because this is what's here at the moment. And there are so many businesses that are being offered for sale. I do a lot of work in the due diligence space. And when I look at these sorts of things, I look at this and go, this is not, there's no value in this. No one's going to pay for this one on the right-hand side. It's not enforceable. It says equal to 1 week's rent plus GST. But if it's expressed as a figure, as a formula, it has to have the dollar figure in there as well. And then you've got $252. Can you imagine buying a rent roll, one management, and the maximum capacity for your advertising, for your marketing and ancillary fees is $252? Again, no authority over here, none of the check boxes. Missing this particular client here, when I went through with them, I questioned them, and I was doing a lot of work with their office. There's about 450 properties. This was 18 months ago. I questioned, why do none of their authorities have the urgent repairs in them? And their question is that the owners didn't want to pay for them. So they felt that it was too much, so they removed it. Now, if you're removing the urgent repairs, it's actually a little, this was an older one, and it says there, if that's blank, then it needs to be $3,000. The problem was, inside of all their leases, they still said $1,800. So we've got a real issue here where we've got inconsistent data, inconsistent information, and inconsistent, say in here, rent frequency dates for rent reviews. Some are set at 12 months, some are set at 9 months, some are set at 12. So go back through, just do an audit. Pull up your management authorities, pull up your Inspection Express. If you need some help, I'm happy to chat with you about building into the Inspection Express suite and fixing those. Again, it's what I talked about in April. Make sure your data, it doesn't matter what you do from here on in. If your documentation is not right, everything else from there falls down. This is my fee schedule. It's 4.5 pages that I work with clients on. And every client that I start working with, they say to me initially, we will never get these fees. And then I start working with them and educate them and explain to them how to go about getting them. Number 2, okay, high risk area number 2, your written authority to act on a couple of areas. Obtain clearly written instructions and authority from your property owners to understand who's responsible to conduct and manage the safety inspections, minimum standards inspections, landlord's insurance, building insurance. Obtain authority to sign documents on behalf of your rental providers and track your electronic consent. So what does this mean for how do you track all this information? Labels, 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 and labels. So fix up your Inspection Express templates. Ask the right questions, get the right authority, bring the document back, audit it, check it, and then update all of your labels. I'll show you some examples of that in a second. But I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I was working with the group that I said I've got the large network. There's about 30 odd property managers there, and we were doing an audit of a VCAT evidence documents. And one of the issues that we had, and I'll just explain this to you, one of the issues that we had was we had actually transferred the management from one agency to another. So when we've transferred the management across, the original agency, let's just call the original agency ABC, and the one that I'm working for is XYZ. So XYZ's lodged the application to VCAT, and they've, Haley, you might be able to help out on this one at a later stage, lodged the application to VCAT. And what they've done is they've served all the notices electronically. However, when we go into the lease has electronic consent to the previous agency. And as part of the Electronic Consents Act, if there's any change to any details, either party has to be informed within 7 days. Otherwise, there's no consent. So what I've gone back and said to them was, we've got 30 people in the room. I went, oh, Jesus, we're in trouble here. We actually don't have, as an agency, electronic consent to serve notices to that renter. We don't have that because the consent was with the previous agency. And then we've transferred the management, and our agency doesn't have electronic consent. So these are the things that you want to be able to do. Again, track all this information with labels. And when you are bringing in properties, double check that you've got electronic consent. Do you have written authority to manage the smoke, gas, electric, minimum standards, landlords inspections, and building inspections. So if you've got authority from Detector Inspector, Smart House Solutions, Smoke Alarms Australia, whoever it may be, RICS, whoever you're using, and they've given you the document to send out to your owners, then I would caution you on that one, because you're now locked into managing the property compliance with that agency, with that supplier. My suggestion is that you get it for yourself. Again, another document that's sitting inside of Inspection Express. I'm not here to denigrate Inspection Express, but if you're using the Inspection Express authority, the owner document right now, there is an error in the base template where it actually says authority for smoke detector, $99. Directly under that, it says, do you give authority for the gas? It says smoke detector, $99 again. And there isn't an authority in that document, your owner's instruction form, for electric inspections. So again, if you're looking to fix those things up and build your documentation better, come to me and I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I can help fix what you've got, great, but you need to really tweak. That the documents shouldn't be used in their, I'll just put it to you like this, they shouldn't be used in their current form. It's a template for you to modify. The big issue that I see is that most offices don't modify it. They use it as it is off the shelf. Okay. So number 2, need to make sure you've got written, clear instructions. Why is that important? Because if you're being investigated by CAV, if you're being audited, you want to know who the smoke, gas, electric is, who's running the minimum standards, what documentation do you have? So this is my document for the Safety Authority. We have one page. I've got lots of links. One page talking about the smoke inspections, one page talking about the gas, one page talking about the electric, and the other page talking about the pool and spa barrier safety. And then what we do is we send that out and we get that back, and we then we create the labels. We need to make sure we're using the labels. Then we've got our compliance reminders inside of here. High risk area number 3, poor systems, checklists, and workflows. Develop some really, really good systems, processes, and checklists. So even if you've got a boardroom, I can see there's a couple of people here that are in their boardrooms. If you've got a boardroom, sit down and say, where are our weak spots? What are our gaps? What can we fix? What's a big concern? Hopefully today I've shared with you a few areas that I look at when I'm going into offices. I can talk to each individual office individually, or I can do this en masse and say, these are the things that I'm seeing. I've seen it for the last 3.5 years. I did the webinar in April. I'm still seeing it. So I'm trying to share with you, these are the things that you really need to go into your business and try and fix. If we can help, great. If not, and you've got a little checklist from here, then perfect. At least if you can try and improve your own business. Because if CAV knock on your door, I showed you what they're trying to do to get into your office and how easy it is. They're asking your tenants to complain. So please don't think that you're immune. Your office is on a list somewhere. All that happens to be is when CAV can get out there. Okay. So develop good agency systems, processes, and checklists. The checklists inside a property are blank. There's nothing there. Now, I'll go into offices and I see some of the checklists, and it's a little bit like I've been building Trello checklists for the last 10 years. You have to have a logic behind building a checklist. You have to have a logic behind the process. The problem with a lot of them is it's one person's logic, and it's like, okay, we're just going to do this, and the next person doesn't really understand how it all fits in. So when I build the checklist, and it's quite detailed, I'll show you some of these here. When I build them, I have a look and say, what's the VA's task? What's the property manager's task? What's the department manager's task? What's the leasing task? And I set all of that out, and I've tried to really framework it. And I use a process of mind mapping who needs to do what. So go back through and make sure you can track when the inspections have been done, if there's any recommendations. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. And this absolutely kills me when I see officers, when I'm doing audits. I go back through and see, and this may be in your business. In March of 2021, there was a lot of pressure on getting smoke, gas, electric inspections done. For the gas and electric, we're already into our second cycle. So there are some offices that still haven't done them the second time around. They've still got the first ones. So they might have got them done sometime in 2021, maybe in sometime in 2022, which means they're due this year. So what happened was there were lots that came back as non-compliant or had recommendations, and they were just parked. They were just archived. They're sitting in an email somewhere. They're sitting in a Dropbox or a OneDrive or somewhere, maybe even sitting inside of Property Me or Tree. But no one's actually actioned them. So develop a system that when the documents come back, and if you're not using VAs, reach out to me. I can have a chat with you about how I can try and help build those and train those for you. I put VAs into offices everywhere that I work, and then I train them with a whole series of videos and processes and systems. So we need to make sure that we're getting the right people doing the right tasks. You can't get property managers to be looking at all this. They just haven't got the time. So if we can get VAs to come in, look to check to see if the property is compliant, what the recommendations are, and then we create tasks. What I'm going to encourage you to do now is stop using spreadsheets. Stop using Airtable. I've got a client that was using Airtable, or even Trello. I'm a massive rap for Trello. I'm a Trello advocate, and I've been using Trello. I put systems into Trello. Trello into businesses in most places that I work with for their structure. It's like an intranet, but I don't use it for checklists. I don't use spreadsheets. You must use the information sitting inside a Property Me or Tree. Use the checklist, use the labels, use the workflows. Again, if you're not doing this now, here are a couple of examples of some checklists to have a look at. All right, so we've got workflows. So I've got 6 workflows inside of here. There's the one that I use when I'm building workflows for which documents we've got. So we've done an audit, and you go back through, you can see what's the PM task, what's the VA task, what's the VA task, what's missing, Owners Corp rules. So build these. I'm just giving you some framework around how to build them. I've got the explanations inside of here, and then I go and build these. So I've got 7 actually, just on the audit process that I do. So when I'm working with the officers, I'm putting these in. So I suggest that every property needs to have workflow number 4, which is around the rental minimum standards. I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So when the document comes back, we would audit the document, and is the door locks compliant, vermin-proof bins? Yes, yes, yes. Because I'm a big believer in making sure that we've got evidence. It needs to have evidence that the property complies. Door locks, vermin-proof bins, toilets, bathroom. Tick, 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 tick. And if it complies, great. If it doesn't, then here's our issues, and then we create tasks from there. So also my suggestion from the compliance documents in Inspection Express, fix up your rental minimum standards declaration. So the one that's in the owner's instruction form now, I pull that out and I create a secondary document. It's 13 pages. I put lots of links in here, so all the links are down there, so the owner knows exactly what it is that they're required to adhere to. And as a result, we have more buy-in from our owners wanting to fix things. I'm not here to promote any particular company, but I have been seeing a lot more of PCV, Property Compliance Victoria's checklists, and I actually really like them. They're a bit clunky, but they're detailed, and they've got their information that sits inside of here. Particularly like here, if it says no, if it's not compliant, I'm seeing so many officers that have got these sitting there, like this one here from 2023, that'd be sitting in someone's inbox or in their email or sitting in the property file, but no one's actually addressed the RCDs, or no one's addressed the veranda or the structural soundness. No one's actually addressed them. So what we need to do is go back through and put in systems in place. So this is what I'm talking about, building your checklists and your systems. If your owners don't want to use PCV, I've built a checklist, which was similar to the REIV one that Leah and Gil built or put together in 2021, but I've used it as a tick and flick form. And I've got a lot of clients that we've just rebranded this for. and it's 11 pages, and it's an opportunity for an agency to go in and just do tick, 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 tick. And if you've raised any concerns, like if you go in there and you see mold, then you bring somebody in. If you go in there and see, window blinds not there, then you fix those. But it's just, we need to have either a third party or at least the agency. Number 4, poor renter document file structures. Now, access to archive and historic data. This is really, really important. So my suggestion is to build everything outside of Property Me, Property Tree. If you migrate from one to the other, and this happens a lot, I've got offices that are migrated from REST to Property Tree, then to Property Me. So there's so much information in REST, there's so much information in Property Tree, and there's so much information in Property Me. The problem is you don't have access to that anymore unless you're continuing to pay your subscriptions. And one of the big issues that I see is officers don't have access to their 7 years of data. They can't pull the information out. So when CAV come knocking on your door, they're not going to come and ask you for what you're doing today. They'll ask you for what you did in 2022. They're going to ask you what you did in 2023, in 2021, because they can go back as much as 7 years. And if you're not sure that that's the way they're going to operate, all you have to do is look at what the last task force did when they were doing the underquoting. They weren't going out there and saying, okay, let's have a look at what you're currently listed. They were going back and saying, well, bring up properties from 3 years ago, bring up properties from 2 years ago, because most officers have got their act together today, or a lot of. So what they're looking for is, if we're going to go in and do an audit, let's go back a little bit. So you need to have access to all this information. So my suggestion is to build a program outside of, whether it's Google, SharePoint, Dropbox, something like that, and then have all your information sitting in there. In all the offices that I go to, the very, very first task that we do is we pull data out of Property Me, we pull data out of SharePoint, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google, and we create it into something which is formulated with structure. And then what we also do is we have a look and say, well, what's valid, invalid, compliant, non-compliant, what can be used, what can't be used. And your archive. You need to make sure you've got archiving. These are the areas you're going to fall down in. So many offices, when I go back and say, well, where are all your archives? They don't have them, or they're in boxes somewhere, or there's no way of retrieving this information. Develop this. There's really heavy fines, really heavy. I'm going to go through those in a second. Make sure you've got all of these things sorted. So high risk area number 5. So I've covered 4 so far. Audit, update, recheck, and track. Please, if I can encourage you, this is not about me trying to do anything for me. It's about today, start a process of auditing. In your business, make auditing a second word that everyone uses. So every time you do something, someone else audits. You're checking constantly. There's not just audit once. It's not CAV coming into audit. It's you should, as a business, everything you do, you should have audit systems all the way through. Because we're digital, most documents will just be sitting there, may never even be printed. So they just go from one to the next to the next. So it's not as clearly easily accessible and readable as it used to be when we had filing cabinets. You could go to a filing cabinet and you go flick, 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 flick. Oh, that's missing. This is missing. Now we don't have that, which is why I'm suggesting the file structure. I've been building systems now for 15 years in offices to help them make sure that, one, they're sale ready, that they're organized, they're systemized, that we add value to efficiencies, we retain staff, and we can grow. That's what I'm trying to do with these processes I'm showing you today, to make sure that you are ready. And as I indicated, when we got CAV come to our office for the one out in Point Cook, we just showed them everything that we're doing. And they went, oh, this is impressive. You've got that, you've got this, you've got this, you've got that. You haven't got the door locks. Fix those up. We got a warning, and off they go. So it's really, really important that you can produce evidence. You're not scrounging for things. You're not trying to say, oh, I think it's in someone's email. I think it's here. You need to make sure you've got all this stuff. Number one issue we find when working with an agency is that they're relying on missing, invalid, outdated, old, or incorrect, unenforceable documents. It exposes you and the owners to really heavy penalties, potentially criminal charges, not to mention that there is zero value on your rent roll for those authorities that I showed you before. If you've got your authorities in the wrong name, every other document will be incorrect. if you are unsure if it's gone into your Property Me or Property Tree, if you're unsure if this applies to your agency, audit every property. Start today. Build a new file structure in Google. Take everything outside of Property Me. I only put the current documents into Property Me. I've got so many offices that either sell or transfer, and then they say, well, I don't have access to my records unless I have to pay for Property Me for the next 7 years, or Property Tree, or Console, or doesn't really matter which program. Rest, you need to make sure that you've got all this data. You own it. You as the business has that. I've got a fairly detailed matrix that I use when I'm looking at due diligence, and this is what they look like. So this is all the information that we pull. There's about 100 key data points that we pull for the landlord, the property, sorry, the rental provider, the property, and the renter. And this is what it looks like. So you can see straight away in every one of these properties what's missing, non-compliant, breach, what's missing, invalid, when was it last updated. One of the things that I do track though is the first authority date and the current authority and the current date. So on this particular property, it shows that we've been managing this property for 11.5 years. So you can't do that unless you're manually pulling the data out, but it's really important that you've actually got access to all this. Same with the renters, we pull out all the renter information, bonds missing, pay to dates, valid, invalid, condition report, applications, those sorts of things. High risk number 6, issues with proper disclosure to renters. It's one of the most common that I see. So many offices never use disclosures for their lease renewals. I don't know where that came in, but they just never did it. I've got that many offices that I've been working across that didn't, prior to working with me, didn't have disclosures when they were doing a lease renewal, or simply didn't check the disclosure when it came back from the owner. So my suggestion is, when you have a disclosure statement, send it to the owner, use that as part of your advertising. I've got all systems around that. Use that when you're advertising, update your labels, but then also go into the agent notes. If the owner says yes to smoke, yes to gas, yes to electric, and no recommendations, and you know that's wrong, don't use that document, because you're now incorrectly disclosing information to a renter. So go into Inspection Express and modify the notes. If it's another document you're using, go in and just modify the notes. If the owner says yes, 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 don't send it. Don't use it on its own merits. So, and also rewrite your special conditions. Go through, and I'll show you those in a second. Make sure that all of your properties that have owners corporation rules, move in, move out guidelines, save all that. The old red book, I call it red book. It's the renter's guide, and you've got and the condition report has all the dates in it for the last compliance and cleaning receipts. I don't think I've seen an office in 3.5 years get the cleaning receipt part right. So many put in yes, professional cleaning, but they don't provide the receipts. So this is the disclosure statement. It's 14 pages that I've built specifically, and there's lots of really detailed questions in here. There's 29 questions that I've asked, more than the base in the Inspection Express template. This is the advertising. We're going back through and we're doing an advertising audit. So as I said to you before, every property has number 4 and number 6 set up in the companies that I work with inside of Property Me, and we go through and we do an audit. These are the 2 main areas that CAV are looking for. When I went back through, we've got bonds, advertising, and rental minimum standards. So I've built in workflows, systems, and training. I'm trying to help you do the same thing, even if it's just giving you the ideas. This is what we've got. Has confirmed the property is being advertised at a fixed price, not arranged. Tick. Confirm the bond is required 1 calendar month. Confirm the property attributes and features stated in the listing are factual and representative. This is in my checklist. And so when we've got a new property manager that's loading, or a new VA, or a new leasing, or a new assistant, whoever's putting the ad up, they have to go through and check all of these things. And by checking it, it's been done. And if it's not checked, then it's part of our audit process. So this is what I'm trying to say to you. Develop these systems inside your business. That one's got 50. Property Me has a maximum of 50. That one's got 50 points in that, because the fines are extraordinary, and we tend to, as an office, go back through and just pull up the ad from the year before and then put it up again. So that to me is one of the higher risk areas, is the advertising, which is why there's such a detailed checklist. You're advertising, so if you're using Inspection Express or even the prescribed document, write this down now. Have a look at item 16. Item 16 on the CAV prescribed document talks about the agency must disclose the information around to a renter around the smoke detectors. I'll get to that in a second. The break lease. If you've got a break lease that's similar to this, where you've got a fixed fee still in your leases, in your rental agreements, stop it today. Go in and fix it today, because you cannot charge a fee to a renter above and beyond what the owner's paying. So this is why we have to fix up management authorities. We have to fix up the processes. And I see this in here, a letting fee representing 2.2 weeks plus GST. Now, not every property in this portfolio would have been at 2.2 weeks, but the renter was being charged that. So these are the things which I find are extraordinary. Firstly, you're not allowed to use the words plus GST either. All your figures must include GST. So inside of here, this is what I'm talking about: date professional cleaning, but no invoice, missing the smoke, gas, electric, condition reports, doesn't matter what program you use, not signed. So the lease agreement, the lease renewal, of course, you can't have a break lease for the same fee structure in a renewal, because the owner's already got the benefit. Number 7, building your agency 2.0, become audit ready. So throw out your old ways of thinking, your old systems, your old ideas, and recreate agency as if you were starting all over again. There's a program that I've been running for many, many years, which is about property management 2.0. And that is, if we were to start our business today, not looking at our competitors, not looking at what we've done, we started it today, would we have the same type of business? And the answer is almost always no. We would do things very, very differently. But typically what happens is businesses look to their competitors and say, what's my competitor doing? Therefore, I'm going to do the same. So backfill your database, Property Me, so that you can easily retrieve the evidence as to the compliance of the properties, the owner, the tenancies. And just in case CAV do come knocking on your door, you're absolutely ready. I have no issues in the agencies, some that I've just started with, but the issues that the agencies that I'm working with, we've got 393 labels in our system. And you can see the way the structure is. This is what creates logic. It creates ease. Now, of course, you're not going to remember them all, but these are the things that it makes sense to actually have all your information sitting inside of there. What's compliant, what's not compliant inside of your system. And what does it look like? This is typically the way a property would look if I was going into Property Me today. So photographs not used, labels not used, reminders not being used, documents very, very poor. But when I work with offices, I use the photo gallery here for photographs. Everything we know about the property should be put into there. Transfer of management. We're using labels. We're using reminders. We've got document naming conventions inside of here. So we don't have to open any documents for us to know exactly what's sitting in there. You can see here, 221 photos, probably a few too many in there, but 5 reminders, all the blue. If someone came to me and said, are we paying the gas, electric, or smoke? Well, rather than me go to documents, I've got it here. We pay the council rates. We're paying for a detector inspector. We've got electronic compliance. We've got electric compliance, electronic consent. We've got that. We've got authorization, $500 from the owner to do non-urgent repairs. So my question to you is this. Are your processes in your business today, are they exposing you? Because from the 3.5 years I've been working in this space, just auditing properties to get, to make them compliant, sale ready, those sorts of things, it's never been more intensified as it has since March of this year, when CAV came out and said, right, we've given you a couple of years to get your act together. You're not. So we're now coming after you, which is effectively what they're saying. None of this is around agency education. None of this is around owner education. It's all around, how do we get the renters to dob in the agent so we can come back and we can find them, make an example of you. So my question to you is this: are you running a business that is exposing you? And if you are, here's a couple of the areas that are, and the fines. I just want you to look at the fines. This is the one we talk about with regards to not having archive systems. 49A, Estate Agents Act. Estate agent must not destroy any document required and must retain document for prescribed period. 20 grand for not having a good archive system. So it wouldn't cost 20 grand to bring somebody like me in to come in and put good systems in. The retention of documents, another $4,000. You're destroying documents. Officer and effective control must always, whenever we look at enforceable undertakings, this is what gets added in. The officer and effective control has a responsibility by law to establish procedures designed to ensure that the business is conducted in accordance with the law and good agency practice. Monitoring the conduct of the business in a manner that will ensure it's, as far as practicable, procedures are complied with, and properly control and supervise the management of any office. If you're not, there's 5 grand there. There's $25,000 just in bad systems inside of there. Then, of course, we've got these commissions. You can't charge a renter any fees, and renters are being charged break lease fees. They're being charged renter transfer fees. They're all sorts of issues that are doing my head in. Dispute resolution procedures. Do you have them? Are they public? They're in your written authority that you've got them and that you can present them. Make sure they're on your website. Breaches for the Tenancies Act. Let's have a look at this one. 30D, this is your advertising, 60 grand. Information residential rental providers must disclose before entering your property, 60 grand if you're not doing your disclosures right. This one here, you can't charge, you can't take guarantors or parental guarantors, nearly 12 grand in through to here. You can't charge additional fees in here. 65A, 60 grand for occupation of a premises that doesn't comply with minimum standards. You've got to verify that complies with minimum standards before you put somebody in. And of course, the rental provider must keep good records of the gas and electrical safety checks. Can't ask for fees of giving consent. That's the renter transfer fees inside of there. Breaches in the Estate Agents Act. This is a no-brainer where we've got the embedded networks and those sorts of things. Put them into your ads. But I just want to show you this next one. Requirements for next one again here. This is a smoke alarm safety. It's item 16, and make sure I've written a whole series of special conditions around this. The rental provider, so it's number 3 here. The rental provider, on or before the commencement of the rental agreement, must provide the renter with the following in writing: information about how each smoke alarm in the premises operates, information about how to test each smoke alarm in the renter premises, and information about the renter's obligations to not tamper with any smoke alarms and report the alarm that's not working. So it took me a while to try and come up with this, but I've written some special conditions. I've downloaded about, I think it's 21 or 22 PDFs for different smoke alarm manuals, and the special conditions get added into the lease, the new lease templates that I build, and then we put a link directly from the lease, from the rental agreement, straight back through to the agency website, and that has all the PDFs there that have got there's 22 of them. There's some battery ones and some hardwired PDFs sitting on the agency website. And then we've got written into the special conditions that the renter can't put foil over the smoke detector, can't tamper with it, can't pull it down, can't put hair nets, can't put glad wrap, those sorts of things. We've got that written in there. So when CAV come in and they say, are you complying with the Act? These are the sorts of things that I spend my day making sure that our officers that I'm working with do comply. And again, it's really, really easy to fall foul of not having the information available. Okay. So with so many mini projects within an agency, what are your options? There's lots. There's so many things that you need to go through and try and fix. So you and your team can spend the next time identifying, next little bit, identifying the risks, creating the solutions, and then fixing them whilst running your portfolios. Typically, that's not going to happen. In most of the offices that I work with, they say they just haven't got the time. Or if you do want some help, it takes about 6 days for me to customize the Inspection Express templates, and there's 9 that I build for you. So I take your Inspection Express, I then put my portfolio, my templates in, and then I build them specifically to your business, and then we run some training videos around those. Then I can add the 400 labels and the workflows and put your gains and losses in there as well. We can do that in about 6 days. Or I do a lot of work in the space of done for you, because businesses are just too under the pump to try and do a lot of this stuff themselves. So this is what I do. So my question is this: what's your 2025 going to look like? Are you going to do some of these things yourself? You're going to do them with someone else? You bring a consultant in, you get some training. If you're part of a corporate, go back to head office, ask them for some help. I don't care who does it, how you do it, but spend the next couple of months. We've got September, October, and November, then December's a write-off. So September, October, November. So you've got about 12, 14 weeks to get your act together so that your 2025 doesn't roll over. 2021, we had some time. 2022, we should have got our stuff together. 2023, we're running out of time. 2024, you've been put on notice by CAV. My suggestion is don't go into 2025 with the same processes, systems that you've always run with. Do something about it. And I said, if I can help, then reach out. But otherwise, I'm encouraging every person to do it. So roll up your sleeves in the last 3 to 4 months and kickstart and get into 2025 the correct way. I'm just going to run through a little bit of a program that I have put together. So what I'll ask, you can do this here. It's a Q&A. So when I work with larger groups, I've written a checklist, and it's a workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop, and we run through and we do a checklist, a tick and flick form, to try and identify the skill gaps, the areas, the weaknesses inside a business. Now, hopefully I've demonstrated today that I've got a lot of systems in place, but in order to have the systems, you have to understand where the skill gaps are. The more offices I go into, the more areas that I see are weaknesses, therefore I create more systems. So let's just use this. So I've created this document. It's about a 16, 17 page document. We run it through a 3-hour workshop, and we go through, and each person fills in the checklist. So I just thought I'd add one category in for you. So what you do is you go in, you write, so for the agencies that are using Inspection Express, have you updated them? It's either yes or no. Has the ancillary fee been updated and modified to reflect the current agency fees and the correct allocation of GST? Yes, no. Has the renter transfer fee been noted correctly in the fee schedule and the rental agreement template, and is the owner being charged this fee first with a reimbursement request from the renter? Yes, no. So these are the questions that I do as a workshop when I'm working with officers collectively to try and understand where the skill gaps are. For agencies that have created their own documents, have they been updated, or someone looked at them? If you're using the Vic Forms documents, are they updated? Since the introduction of the new Tenancies Act, has there been a detailed document audit conducted on every property? Yes or no? Is there a structured audit workflow and procedure to record and create accurate reports and lookups to identify compliant, non-compliant, missing, invalid, expired documents? Yes, no. So these are the sorts of things here. Have you got, how are you using your labels? I go to so many offices that don't use labels, they don't use them well, don't use reminders. Is there a good structured portfolio directory, cloud-based, to store all the documents? You know, Dropbox, Google Pod, SharePoint, whatever it is. I don't really care what you use. Just use something outside of the database. Yes, no. So I would imagine so far there's a few offices in here that have gone no, 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 no. Well, if that's no, 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 what's your 2025 going to be like? Is there a process where another senior agent, like a department manager or a director, randomly audits the property manager's activities at the end of the month using a structured checklist? So these are the things that I've put together, this Q&A. There's 13 categories that I've built. so we can go through and look at the skill gaps and the weaknesses in a business. Are you using a virtual assistant to outsource and manage the document compliance, file naming, and document auditing? If not, your PMs are doing it, and they haven't got the time. So now more than ever, you want to have a look at your properties and make sure that you know what's going on inside of there. And if this is the checklist there, so we work through, what is it, 14 pages. If you want to chat with me about this one, then we can chat later on. Then I've gone and built a 90, 120-day workflow that we build when we go into the offices off all these questions. We've got videos and training and that sort of stuff that's sitting inside of there. That's what the Trello boards look. This is how you use. This is how I use Trello rather than using it for activities. As we come into the last couple, here's my website. If anyone has any queries or any questions, by all means, go to the website. I'd love to think that I've been able to add some value to you today. I'm almost talked out. I'd love to think that you've got something. You've certainly got. I believe that I've given you your $99 worth of value. I charge $99 for one person or 20 people in an office. I don't do this because I want to. It's not the monetary aspect of it, although I need to be paid for the time. But I want to make sure that I can expose you to some best practices that are sitting in there. And if you can just go back through, there's my Google reviews. If you've picked up anything today, if there's anything that you can put into your business over the next 3, 6, 12 months, I'd love for you to write a Google review if you've not done one before. But I'll just go back to, I really want to make sure that you've got access to some good business processes, some good systems. I don't run a rent roll. I have no landlords and I have no tenants. So I've got access at the moment to 9 Property Me and I think 7 Inspection Express profiles, and that I'm in there, I'm working on the files, I'm working in the systems, and I go in and I help wherever I can. I build the data, I build the database, and then I help the clients whilst they're doing what they do, which is managing the portfolio. So if there's anything that I'm able to help you with as I come to the end, there's my contact details and a QR code from me again. I did promise for those that I'd actually had in at 12 o'clock. My apologies for those that I missed at the beginning. It was really the only 1 or 2 opening slides that I didn't put you in for, but you'll get the video later on. I did promise that I'd be gone in by 1:30. And looking at my clock, we're at 1:28. So I wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity to be able to actually come in. I'm going to just do some Q&A in a second. Opportunity to help you, if I can, share with you what I've done since April. Come back through to there. So what I've been doing since April and helping officers collectively. If anyone wants to pop themselves onto chat or open, then by all means, ask any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. Just go back through the chats. If the agency does do the minimum standards checklist, are we then responsible? Yes, and yes. So here it is. It's a walkthrough. So it's a fallback position. So my position is this, Candice. My position is this: the owner's responsible to make sure the property complies, but you also are the person who's going to be then creating a lease. So what you can't do is say, yes, I have a declaration, the owner's ticked 14 yeses, and you at least not have done something. So I have a checklist that we go through and say, yes, or no, that's an issue. Then we raise it back through with the owner and we bring somebody else in. We're not doing minimum standards inspections. It's just a tick and flick form so that we can cover our own selves as well. I'm going to turn the recording